It's time for Southern Fried Baseball, presented by College Baseball Central. Hosted by Jake McKeever as he talks everything SEC baseball and more.
Welcome in, College Baseball Central fans. Micah, we finished all of our preview shows. You in the ACC, me in the SEC. Time to talk some ball. Opening weekend, you and I are going to be at that Shriners, as you can kind of tell by below. Thanks for coming on, Micah.
It's weird, Monty. Geez, see, I'm so used to saying Monty off an intro. And I also just got off of our live show, obviously. But is this what it feels like when it means more? Is this what it feels like? Because I've never felt this before, Jake. It feels different. You know, I'm so used to just not really meaning much, you know? But now it feels like it means just a little bit more.
Everything in the SEC feels like every single week is so important. Every single week is a super regional. I guess we can go ahead and kick it off then with the team that is newest to the SEC. Texas Longhorns are heading up to Shriners. They are playing Louisville, Ole Miss, and Oklahoma State. So a conference opponent in Ole Miss that they will not see again in the season. And then a former conference opponent in Oklahoma State. The Horns are 5-13 at Globe Life, including 8 consecutive losses. But I did a little bit of research. Jim Schlossnagle is 4-2 at Globe Life and 3-0 as an SEC coach. So a little bit of excitement around Texas. Obviously, you know more about Louisville. What can Texas fans kind of expect from this Louisville team?
Well, the guy that's throwing on Friday is one of the best pitchers in the ACC, in Patrick Forbes. I think that's something to circle if you're a Texas fan, because you are going to see an SEC caliber starting pitcher on Friday night. Patrick Forbes was a Team USA guy this summer. Really nasty fastball. Off speed's really good as well. And the lineup for Louisville, I had them as my best outfield in the ACC. They've got some dudes, Team USA guys, including Zion Rose. Just a really, really deep lineup. This is a program, right, that's kind of desperate to get on the right track. Last time Louisville opened the season in Texas to start the collegiate season, they got up to number 5 after sweeping in Houston. So, you know, this is kind of something where Louisville last year had a disappointing season. So they're really, really focused on getting off on the right track. Last year they got off on the wrong track, and they, to this day, swear that was a big part of why they struggled. They started 0-2, losing to UConn and Indiana State in Florida. So
you mentioned Patrick Forbes. He is going to be the best player that Texas has seen, as all of their fall stuff was inter-squad stuff. Texas, when I was there, I believe had 2 guys that could throw over 93, which is average in the SEC. The lineup is as follows. It's going to be very, very straightforward. They had a few guys really, really push hard for playing time, but I think this is what it's going to end up being. Rylan Galvan behind the plate, Kimball Schuessler as the first baseman, Evan Mendoza, the transfer coming over from Arizona State. Him and Casey Borba are locked in a tight battle there. I think it's going to be Evan Mendoza with Casey Borba DHing. Jalen Flores at shortstop, Easton Winfield, Will Gasparino, and Tommy Farmer asterisk in right field, just because Max Blue is dealing with a little bit of an illness. Tommy Farmer.
Blue's still out?
Yes. I mean, we can't really talk about, you and I both know what he has, but it is not a defibrillating injury, but it's something that Sam Darnold in the NFL was out for 3 or 4 weeks with it. So it is a little bit
that's right. I guess I just didn't think about when the timetable was, like when that happened. Yeah. Wow.
We actually don't know when he got sick, just from when we know it when we heard it, which was that first weekend at alumni game. The pitching rotation, it has not been released. I believe them, OU, and Missouri, the only 3 that haven't released it. So this is highly speculative. Jared Spencer, the Indiana State transfer, is going to go against Louisville probably. Luke Harrison is going to go against Ole Miss. And then Cody Howard is who I project to kind of be in that Sunday role against Oklahoma State. Obviously, Rigo Riojas is, the really, really premier one out of the bullpen. And then your old boy from Notre Dame kind of raised everybody's eyebrows when we saw Texas.
Yeah. One thing of note Jake, I don't know if you realize this, but if you project Jared Spencer to start this game, he pitched against Louisville last year.
And he beat him. You just mentioned it. They beat him.
He only went an inning, but he got 2 strikeouts in that inning. He was really good. So I kind of assumed that's who they were going to go with when we were doing our ACC preview. We kind of talked about that a little bit, but I think it'd be obviously, good for him. He's had success before against Louisville. So, but yeah, it's going to be.
Yeah, I think you and I talked about this a while back, that whoever wins that Texas-Louisville game on Friday night, I feel like is going to get a little bit of a benefit of the doubt going forward for a few weeks, especially if Texas, which is a team that they are projected to finish above in the SEC, takes care of business against Ole Miss. Sunday, everybody seems like they kind of get a little bit of a pass. But again, if they can take 2 of 3 in Arlington and one of those wins being against Louisville, that's going to raise everybody's eyebrows around the country. Because Texas is, I think, them and Georgia are the 2 most polarizing teams in the SEC. Everybody else is in very, very similar spots. But Texas seems like they're the one that's really kind of fluctuated all over. They did have the composite ranking, as I kind of pulled that up on my phone here, so we can talk about just how big of a difference some of these Texas teams are. D1 has Texas at 19th, Perfect Game at 7th, National College Baseball Writers Association's at 17th, Baseball America 14th, and then we have them at 19th, the same as D1 baseball. So a really kind of mixed bag for Texas. But again, if they go in, beat Louisville, beat them with Patrick Forbes, it really is going to raise a ton of eyebrows around the country.
Yeah, I had Louisville ranked just a spot ahead of Texas in my ballot for the CBC poll. I think the biggest thing that I'm looking at, because again, the importance of that game for Texas and Louisville, but I'll just again give the Louisville side of it. Louisville needs that game against Texas because they have Arizona and Oklahoma State as their other 2 games in Arlington. 2 teams, right? It's probably the 2 best teams in the Big 12. 2 teams that I'm projecting to host regionals, that a lot of people are expecting to host regionals. Like Louisville has easily the most difficult slate of any team in the Shriners. I mean, having Texas as your easiest game in the Shriners Classic is not easy, obviously. So yeah, Oklahoma State maybe has that conversation.
A lot of favors.
I forgot who's Oklahoma State's third opponent. Because Oklahoma State I know has Texas. I guess they have Louisville and Clemson. So no, they don't play Louisville. Yes, they do. So that one could be kind of neck and neck for the toughest one. But for Louisville, if they lose Friday, a lot of things can change for them. So I know again, the closer for Louisville as well, Tucker Bivens, one of the better in the ACC too. So if Louisville has a lead late, I think I feel pretty good about Louisville holding on, and they're going to go not all in to win that game. But I'm telling you, having had conversations
with people. It's Friday night.
Yeah. And I had conversations with the Louisville people. That game is more than just that game itself, if the situation arises, is like a regional game 1 kind of thing. Like you want to get the head start to be in the winner's bracket kind of move. Like they're going to go all in for that game. So excited. Very excited to spend Patrick Forbes Day. Valentine's Day.
Is my audio okay? I'm
You just froze, but
Patrick Ford. Is my audio good? I feel like
I hear you.
Okay. Okay. I'm just frozen as a screen. My
computer. You're good now. You froze for 30 seconds.
Predictions for Texas. I think they go 2-1. I think Louisville gets them on Friday night. They bounce back on Saturday against Ole Miss, and then they beat Oklahoma State in kind of that Sunday night game. Oklahoma State at times is incredible, and then at other times they struck out 20 times in a weekend. I think Texas is going to have a big chip on their shoulder. I think Schloss is going to get them ready to play. I think they're amped up, ready to play. Is that kind of what you're seeing too as well, or do you see them beating 1 and 2? Ooh, interesting.
Just beating Ole Miss. I'm all in on Oklahoma State. I think Oklahoma State's my Omaha 8 will come out, I guess, when this comes out tomorrow, when we're recording as of tomorrow, so Thursday. I have Oklahoma State going to Omaha. I think that they are that type of team. Again, I don't trust the Texas staff enough for this to be that Sunday game to feel like they're going to be able to have more than what Oklahoma State has. I just think that, and again, I think with Texas, this is a team that's going to get better as the year goes on, but this is so early. This is a great test for them. again, to be very clear, I do think Texas is going to be a force in the SEC. I just don't think that like they're going to come out hot. And again, I am biased, right? I mean, I'm literally wearing a Louisville shirt from the show previously, but like Louisville is desperate for that game. I don't want to say that Texas is as desperate. I mean, it didn't feel like when we were there, right? You could tell that there was a belief that this program is they're going to develop. They're going to grow as the season goes on. Louisville, not that they don't have that luxury. Louisville, again, we're talking about Dan McDonnell at Louisville, who is now a couple years removed from Omaha. His seat is getting a little bit warm. People are getting a little tired. I mean, Louisville's missed the tournament 2 years in a row. That's very unlike them in the Dan McDonnell era. So I just think that Friday matchup with Patrick Forbes on the mound, I don't care who Texas is throwing. The best starting pitcher is for Louisville. So I just think 1 and 2 kind of makes sense. And I don't think that's a bad thing for Texas. I think going 0 for 3 is a little bit concerning, but if they can find one, I don't walk away thinking anything less of Texas.
No, not at all. Let's go ahead and move on into Ole Miss at Shriners. They are playing Arizona at 3, Texas Saturday night, and then Clemson on Sunday. We do have Ole Miss's pitching rotation coming in. It is going to be Hunter Elliott against Arizona, Riley Maddox against Ole Miss, and then Nichols against Clemson. I don't really know how to feel about Ole Miss. They don't really jump out to me from a talent standpoint. They do have Hunter Elliott. I don't know what we're going to see from Hunter Elliott, mostly because we haven't seen Hunter Elliott in 2 years. The lineup leaves a little bit to be desired. Projected starters I have in that graphic coming out tomorrow. I'll just read them off to you. Campbell Smithwick, Will Furness, Braden Randall, Owen Payano, Luke Hill at third baseman, Ryan Moorman in left field, Mitchell Sanford in center, Isaac Humphrey from Louisville coming over. Kind of sucks that we don't see a Ole Miss Louisville matchup. And then Judd Uttermark as the DH. It's going to be a pitching first team. They have, at least in their mind, some of the best pitchers that they feel. What do you think the expectation is for Ole Miss? Because it feels like they're 6 of 6.
I mean, I think the expectation is 0-3. Like, I think that's like what I'm expecting to happen. I think it's a good weekend if Ole Miss can get one. I really do believe that because, we talked about it on our show, on the ACC show, Jake, like we kind of power ranked the 6 teams. And I think depending on how you lean, Clemson obviously on our show came as the number 1 team. Oklahoma State was 2. Arizona was 3. And then 4 was Texas or Louisville, depending on how you want to rotate them, but they're kind of 4 or 5 equally. And then it was kind of a clear 6 with Ole Miss. So I think when you look at that, the matchup that you're kind of dealing with, I think that there is, again, some value into what's kind of going to take place. I think Arizona's got a chip on their shoulder. Clemson, in case you didn't know, Jake, that's Eric Bakic's first game back because he's suspended for the first 2 games for Clemson at Shriners.
Oh, yeah, he is.
Stuff with Florida. So, I just think that Clemson's going to have a different level for that game as well. I also think Clemson's got 3 guys they're really comfortable with on the mound. Not saying that Ole Miss doesn't, but I think Clemson knows who their 3 are. So, and there's a talks that they have not announced a starter. They've done before their ace on Sunday. So there's a chance that Aiden Knox, the guy throwing on Sunday. And if that's the case, Ole Miss is cooked. That's one of the top end starters in the ACC. So that's just, I don't think Ole Miss has a high expectation. I mean, I would love to see it in my SEC power rankings. I had them last. I actually put Missouri ahead of them. I don't know much about Ole Miss, and I just feel like with the program that's 3 years removed from a national title, it's hard to be overly thrilled. There's a lot of pressure on the program right now, and I'm not really sold on this Ole Miss team. And doing the research, it seems like most people are in agreement with that. When you throw an ACC guy into an SEC team that has question marks, it's just hard for me to jump on board.
Yeah, I will say I do like Luke Hill. He was a transfer from Arizona State. His whole story is absolutely crazy out of last year. He's back for another year. Will Furness is another guy that has really, really big pop. I think he could hit a home run this weekend. They have a bunch of guys, though. I think they're going to have to win ugly. It's going to have to be low scoring, manufacturing runs. And if they can steal one, I'd even go as far as to say if Ole Miss is competitive with Hunter Elliott at the top end, that's a win. If he goes 6 innings, that's going to be a win for him. But yeah, I do kind of project 0-3. But, Ole Miss, it's weird because we compare them to other SEC teams. I really don't know what we're going to get from Ole Miss. Moving on into Vanderbilt, they're another team that has announced their starters. I'll read them off. J.D. Thompson at Grand Canyon, Evan McElvain against Nebraska, and then Cody Bowker against UC Irvine. Sorry, my eyesight's a little bit bad, and I was also kind of reading ahead. The headliner in this one is obviously that Brody Johnson isn't going to play. He has kind of a nagging injury that's a little bit long-term. So a couple of the other guys will kind of get some work in. We have Vandy at 20. It's weird because this doesn't feel like a team that should be ranked 20th for as much as people kind of dog on them. It was very, very well documented that they didn't hit a ton of home runs last year. They bring in Mike Mancini from James Madison, who's probably going to play second base for him. Brody Johnson, another guy that can really swing the bat. And outside of that, really nothing else from a power standpoint. What do you expect from Vandy? Again, they are playing in a tournament. Nebraska is kind of an up-and-coming team as they are going to have to replace a lot. I feel like it's got to be 3-0 for the Vandy boys.
I was about to ask you, is there a world where they go 0-3?
I mean, Grand Canyon's the WAC favorite, and Irvine's kind of a Big West dark horse fringe tournament team. No, I think they have to go 3-0. It's weird because they are the most decorated team in terms of playing for the championship in the last 10 years. And ever since they lost to Mississippi State in a national championship that as an ACC guy, you felt that they probably shouldn't have been in. They hosted a regional, got bounced. They went on We'll save your NC State people from that one. They get bounced in a regional that Oregon wins. Last year, they go 2-Q in a regional that they should have won. Fell off at the end of the year. This is a make or break year for Vandy because Tim Corbin's really at an inflection point at Vandy because he really hasn't been able to master the NIL. Vandy obviously has some disadvantages with NIL, just not being able to recruit people that haven't graduated. They have a very niche person that they can bring in the transfer, coupled with, I guess, the diminishment of Operation Vanderbilt. That was kind of a way that Vanderbilt got around some of the scholarship limits. I don't think it was that big of an advantage at the time, but that and NIL are really it doesn't make me feel good about this Vanderbilt team. I know that they're 20. I know that they'll likely go 3-0 this weekend, but I think that this is going to be one of those show me weekends for Vanderbilt.
I don't think they go 3-0, Jake. I really don't. I don't. Nebraska or Irvine's catching them.
One of those two.
I think I'll say it. Vandy fans come after me. I don't really care at this point. The vocal ones on Twitter are pretty great, though, I will say.
Yes,
I think there's a better chance that they go 0-3 than 3-0.
That's a bold take. I don't agree with it.
I don't think either happens. I think 2-1, but I really don't see 3-0. I don't.
So we're gonna do report cards on Sunday, or I guess Monday for it's gonna come out on Monday. I think in order for this to be an A+ weekend, they have to score at least 8 runs in 2 of the 3 games.
Yeah.
They have to show that they can hit the ball and hit the ball with power. They need to have 3 or 4 home runs. They really need to flex that they are an SEC team, that they are Vanderbilt. Again, these are underrated teams, and it really wouldn't surprise me to see them drop 1. But 0-3 or 1-2 feels like an absolute disaster for Tim Corbin. So prediction time. I say 3-0. What are you going with?
2-1.
2-1. Interesting.
2-1.
2-1.
And since we're gonna have some fun with it, I'm gonna throw the loss on UC Irvine.
Irvine. Ooh, that one's interesting. I don't know if I like that or not.
You don't have to like it, Jake, because it just means less to me.
I know. It's SEC bias. Moving on to Missouri as I get their schedule kind of pulled up here. They play, I believe, Stetson. And my computer crashed again, so I'm going to have to look it up on my phone. sure I'll probably lose you on audio.
Jake is struggling.
I am. I'm not at the top of my game.
Missouri's in Puerto Rico. They've got Penn State, UConn, and Stetson.
Yes.
Stetson's a Sunday game.
Stetson's an underrated team. I really like Stetson, I should say. I did just do the projected lineup, so I'll read off, which, by the way, transparently, this was the hardest projected lineup to do. I could not find a single source outside of D1 and then a Missouri fan page that I will correctly link, but they have not done any of their infield or outfielders, so we know who their catcher is, and then we know who their projected pitching rotation is. They haven't announced their pitching lineup. I project, and again, take this with a grain of salt, I have not watched Missouri. No one's really watched Missouri. Yadier Hernandez, Danny Ramirez, Cam Benson, Gehrig Goldbeck, who I actually really, really like, a JUCO guy who had over 440 for him. Jackson Lovich is their kind of headliner returning bat. Thomas Curry in left. Pierre Seals coming over from Memphis is a super athletic center fielder. Jarek Curtis in right. And I actually put Cam Benson twice, so I'm going to have to go in and edit that. If you notice, though, there is no Danny Corona. He is not on the roster. So he hasn't posted on social media. I could not find anything about Danny Corona.
I will ask Nick. Let me text Nick right now. I mean, he won't know the answer, but he can probably find an answer.
Yes, I looked when I did my Missouri preview show. I looked for probably an hour and a half, and then today I probably looked for another 2 hours. Should we put out like an SOS for Danny Corona? Like, is he okay? That's probably the extent of our Missouri preview. Obviously, Jackson Lovich is going to be really good. Yadier Hernandez is a glue guy returning letterman. Gehrig Goldbeck, I think, is another guy that's going to be insanely talented for him. But how do we feel about Missouri? Do you think? I think 1 and 2 is on deck for Missouri. They're another team that feels
I got a text from Nick about why, or not necessarily where he is, but let's just say he's not on the team anymore and he's not playing anywhere. We'll just leave it at that.
Is he doing like independent?
He's not playing anywhere and he's not on the team anymore.
Okay, so we cannot project Danny Corona to be in this lineup at all.
He is not a Missouri Tiger anymore. He is not enrolled at Missouri, according to a source.
Well, you heard it here first. I think UConn gets him on Friday night. I think they're another team that
Saturday.
Who do they get on Friday?
Penn State.
I think they beat Penn State, but Gambino's pretty good.
You're saying they're going to beat Penn State but lose to Stetson?
Yeah, I mean, they have a pretty good Friday night guy. I think that they pitch really well. I think that's going to be an Achilles heel for Penn State. I think they run out of pitching. That's my prediction for it. Sorry, I didn't change the graphic over. This has just been an absolute mess. But I'm going to go 1 and 2.
2 and 1 for Missouri.
Ooh.
They're losing to UConn. UConn's a team I think is a dark horse for Omaha, but I think they're going to beat Stetson, and I think they're going to. I agree. I think they're going to get it done against Penn State. Penn State's trending in the right direction, but I don't think they're there yet. So, and plus, I'm sure Noah will listen / watch this, and he'll get so upset with us. So it's definitely worth picking Missouri just to make Noah mad.
Yeah, but they are Heartland baseball, so I don't really know where Missouri falls in Noah's whole master plan because they definitely. I
would say Missouri is more of a truck stop than a.
Yeah.
Columbia, Missouri is more of a truck stop than not College Park. State College, Pennsylvania.
Moving on, I think we're going to get a plethora of sweeps that we talk about. So when we get through all of them, I'll go ahead and tell you. I'll pose a question for you. Here is Texas A&M's projected lineup against Elon. Bear Harrison is the catcher. Mike Bergevin is going to be the first baseman, but we might see Blake Bender up for them. Wyatt Hensler, who is, I found this out, the most decorated Ivy League athlete in history. That includes better than Lou Gehrig, by the way. He is going to be at second base at 360 for him, owns numerous records. He hit 22 home runs for Penn last year. Gavin Grahovic, who had the SEC freshman home run record, who hit 23, is at third base. He's healthy. Caden Kent, who in very, very limited action hit 4 home runs, hit 327. He's the starting shortstop.
Who's he related to?
I don't know. I'll have to do some research on that one.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know who he's related to. He is going to be the shortstop. For whatever reason, him and Sloss never really saw eye to eye. Early mentioned that in one of the press conferences that he has the utmost faith in Caden Kent. So he is going to be the shortstop. He's another guy that I think could hit 15 home runs. Texas Tech Gavin Cash, who hit 15 home runs last year. 2 years ago, he hit 30 home runs. In center field, Jace Lavalette, he hit 29 home runs, chasing the A&M home run record. Right field is long-term going to be Caden Kent. He hit 11 home runs last year, really came on late, has had a really, really good fall, added a ton of pop. I think he has a nagging hamstring injury. So Terrence Keel or Jamal George, one of those two will play right. I think it's Terrence Keel, who's a freshman. Another guy with unreal bat. Hayden Schott, who hit 8 home runs for Texas A&M last year. But so if you are keeping track, Bergevin can hit 20. Hensler has hit 20 in the past. Grahovic has hit 20 in the past. Cash and Lavalette have hit 20 in the past. That's 5 of the 9 bats that have the ability to do 20 home runs. It's just an unreal lineup. I think it's obviously you have the Virginia jersey behind you. Is it crazy to say that this A&M team is the best lineup in college baseball?
Oh, yeah. They're the best team in college baseball lineup-wise. I mean, I think Virginia's not far behind, but no, I mean, A&M is the number 1 team in the country, in my opinion. And this team is unreal from top to bottom. And I think, too, like I also like A&M's rotation better, too. I know we didn't mention that, but like –
oh, we're going to get there.
But that rotation is just filthy.
Yes. They bring back a guy who was drafted in the top 100 in Ryan Prager. I don't think that happened in college baseball even 4 years ago, as he had a really enticing NIL package, I'm sure. He is the Friday night guy. I think him and Hagen Smith went back and forth for SEC Pitcher of the Year. 124 Ks to 20 walks in 97 innings. Headliner Friday guy. Justin Lampkin, who pitched a ton of meaningful innings for them in Omaha, flirted with the Saturday role, flirted with the Sunday role for a little bit. He is back in that role, another year older, another year wiser. He has that 5.21 ERA, but again, he was very up and down at times. He reminds me a ton of Ty Floyd from LSU when they won that national championship, where when he's on, he's on. When he's off, he's off. Sunday, they've announced it. Miles Patton, the transfer from Long Beach State, is going to be in that role. I get to see him in the fall. Does a tremendous job pounding the zone. Then you have Caden Wilson in kind of that midweek role. Josh Stewart is another guy. Weston Moss, I think, is another guy that you could really kind of take some steps forward. Brad Rudis, kind of in that flex role, maybe as the Tuesday guy. It's an underrated staff, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So with Texas A&M, obviously they have a 29-game non-conference winning streak. It is the longest in the country. I believe they're the only team in college baseball history to have an undefeated non-conference streak and not win the national championship, just because of the way things worked out. I'll read off their next few opponents, and you tell me if they make it to Houston when we all get to see them undefeated. Elon, McNeese, Cal Poly, Texas State in a midweek. Do you think A&M will roll into Houston undefeated? That would make it 37.
What's the win streak at, Jake?
29.
Cool. It's going to stay there.
You think they drop it to drop Elon opening night? Whoa. Well, that's a stunner. See, A&M's
the best team in the country. But there's a lot of pressure to that. And yes. Elon is a scrappy team. The CAA this year is one of the best, if not maybe the best, mid-major conference in college baseball. Charleston's really good. UNCW's really good. Northeastern's really good. Elon is in that that's the top 4 of the CAA. Elon really likes their rotation. They have one of the best mid-major pitchers in the country, and Justin Mitrovic, I think I said that right. He's nasty. And I'm not saying he's better than Prager. I'm simply saying that I just think that there's a lot of excitement, a lot of energy, a lot of high expectations. And wouldn't it be fitting, Jake, for college baseball, for the Michael Early era to start off with just a complete curveball? Like, can you imagine social media when you and I are together on Friday night, especially I have Louisville beating Texas, but imagine if Slosh beats Louisville and A&M loses to Elon night one.
That Twitter would explode because every time I get
Elon
on Twitter,
would be so happy with Elon.
Oh, I know. I don't think that happens. I think they sweep. I think Texas State gets them in that midweek a few weeks down the road.
That's fair.
It's so weird because we haven't seen Michael Early coach a game. This is the most talented team. There's a lot of unknowns. Like there's a
lot. Again, like I think this is the best team in the country. I'm still picking A&M to win the national title. This is not this is just that baseball is a beautiful
perfect
sport.
It's a humbling sport.
It's a beautiful sport where weird things happen. It's Valentine's Day. Everyone's excited. There's so much energy. I mean, again, the crowd for the alumni game or whatever they call it at A&M this past weekend was incredible. The atmosphere is going to be electric at Bluebell on Friday. Like everything is going to be perfect. Elon's coming in. Again, Elon is a talented team. It's the most talented team, in my opinion, that they will play before Houston. So, this is a team.
That's interesting.
I mean, I think they're better than McNeese. I think they're better than Texas State. I think they're better than Cal Poly. So, I mean, Elon is literally a fringe NCAA tournament team this year. Like they return a lot of their lineup from last year. They struggled a little bit last year, but they return a lot. Their Saturday guy was the Friday guy at Fordham last year. So they were returning guys with high quality innings, high quality or high leverage situations. This is a team that has nothing to lose going to Olsen. They have nothing to lose. It's just the perfect storm, in my opinion, to where, again, maybe it's not Friday night, but I genuinely believe that A&M is going to drop one this weekend. And Twitter is just going to be like, it'll be completely unwarranted. But there's going to be the just means more mantra coming out. We're questioning everything about A&M because they lost one game to Elon.
Yes. I think Texas fans have a term for what you're implying. Coping. I don't see it, but I'll buy. We're doing hot dog reviews at Arlington. If it happens, I'll buy you that hot dog for hot dog reviews.
You can buy me the boomstick on Saturday after Elon's win on Friday.
Jesus Christ. That thing is absolutely ridiculous. I think it's
I need to try it. I've never been to Globe Life, so I'm excited.
They have a very limited menu as we kind of go on a tangent about food. But we'll move on to our CBC number 3, the Arkansas Razorbacks. They play Wazoo in. I have a schedule for you, Micah, because they did give us a little scheduling update. They are going doubleheader Friday, Saturday at 2, Monday at noon. They are going Gabe Gackle is getting stretched out into that starter role. ECU's Zach Root, Gage Wood on Saturday, and then Landon Beetleshells, I think is how you pronounce it. Apparently, we're going to call him Cheese. That's what apparently Arkansas fans are calling him, is Cheese. I think Zach Root is going to absolutely eat innings for this Arkansas team. I think they're going to throw him out there, throw him 7-8 innings every single time, save the bullpen, and I think Gackle's going to be on a pitching limit. I don't think Root's going to be on a pitching limit.
I think Zach Root was the best portal pitching pickup in the country.
Yes.
Is that a hot take? I don't know if that's a hot take, but I think that was the number one, that was the best get by any team in the country.
Yeah. LSU wanted him. Florida wanted him. Texas wanted him. A&M wanted him. He's an unreal guy. And then he slides in a Saturday role because Gabe Gackle was I know it's hard to win the SEC Freshman of the Year as a pitcher. I think he had an argument. I think that proves that we'll never have an SEC pitcher win Freshman of the Year if Gackle can't win it, because he was absolutely electric at the back end of that bullpen. And then now they move him up into a starter role, and apparently it's not missing a beat. I think he'll be on a strict innings limit from that standpoint. But again, they get Gage Wood in that Sunday role. Aiden Jimenez is another guy. I don't know about the health of his arm, but he appears to be pretty ahead of schedule. There's a lot to really like about this Arkansas pitching staff. I would go as far as to say this, Micah. For as good as A&M's hitting is, Arkansas is deeper from a pitching standpoint.
Is this the best rotation in college baseball?
By far. It was the best rotation last year, and it's even better.
By far, okay. I mean, I thought it was, but I don't know if I would go as far as by far. But again, I'm also an AC homer that's obsessed with the rotation from Stanford.
I would say it's the equivalent for an ACC
and UNC too. I'm obsessed.
I was just saying, imagine NC State with UNC's headliners and the front end of that pitching rotation.
Fair.
That's the best way to describe it.
Yeah,
they're good at the front end. They're good at the back end.
I mean, again, I have Arkansas as one of the best teams in the country. I mean, I have them as number 3 in my poll, so it's kind of funny.
I had them 1. I had them ahead of A&M, and everybody gave me a whole bunch of crap for it. Projected lineup. I'll read off the locks, and then I'll read off kind of the fringe stuff. Ryder Helfrich behind the plate, lock. He had an outrageous cape. Lineup last year, the average wasn't as good. I think he's kind of got a lot of those jitters out. Rocco Pepe coming over from, I believe, San Jose State. He's won that first baseman job outright. There was a little bit of a conversation hey, if Cozell or Souza loses the second base battle, they can slide him over to first. Rocco Pepe ended all of those. I think Arkansas fans are going to absolutely fall in love with him, partially because of his name and partially because he hits the cover off of the ball. Second base, Nolan Souza. I think he's the most underrated player in college baseball right now. I think he's about to break out as a star. No one's really talking about him on draft boards in 2026. This time next year, I think we'll be talking about Nolan Souza in that 10 to 15 range. I know I'm going to butcher this, so I'm going to give it a shot. Wahewa Aloy. I've actually never heard it pronounced just because every time I've seen Arkansas, it's been in person, and he didn't play. He's an absolutely unreal tank. He's a shortstop that's built like a tight end, has outrageous power. I think if he hits for average a little bit better this year, he's going to be a really cog in the machine. I have him as like a second-team All-SEC shortstop. Britt Irondale, another wonder from down under, a JUCO guy coming over to play third. The outfield, Charles Davelin in center, Justin Thomas Jr. in right, and then Logan Maxwell and Kendall Diggs will play good enough defense, swap between the DH and left field. Maxwell did play left field at TCU 2 years ago, was the DH. We've seen what Kendall Diggs can do in the outfield.
Uh-oh.
Everybody kind of dumped on this Arkansas team last year. Is that kind of what you see too as well?
You got cut out, Jake. You froze for a minute.
How long did I freeze for?
Not very long.
So I guess that I got through all the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
What do you expect from this Wazoo team that's picked near the bottom in the Mountain West? They do play 4 games. One of them is a doubleheader. Do you think Wazoo can take a game here?
So I have a rule. If you watch the ACC show, I explained it because we have Cal and Stanford introducing us ACC folk to 4-game weekends because, that's how they do it out west. I don't think it's not easy to sweep a team. It is insanely hard to win 4 in 4 days against the same team. Like eventually you're going to notice trends. Arms are going to get tired. Something's going to bounce the other way. So for that reason alone, I think Wazoo too is a program that obviously this year not expecting a lot, but I do think that there is excitement around that program, and there's a reason to believe that they can be a force in the Mountain West in coming years. So for that reason alone, factoring into, like I said, with A&M, like selfishly, I do think it would be fun to kind of see the Twitter reactions to losing a game to Wazoo. I think 3-1 for Arkansas. I mean, the expectation should be sweep. I have a principle. Playing the same team 4 times in 4 days, there are very few teams in the country that I would say, there's not a single team I think I would pick to have Wazoo, to sweep Wazoo. But we were even doing it with Cal versus Nevada. There's not many teams in the country I'm predicting to sweep Nevada in 4 games in a 4-day period. So
yeah, it's going to be tough. I think if anybody can do it, it's going to be Arkansas.
Yeah.
Moving on to Tennessee and Hofstra. As we predict this lineup, there is a few things to keep in mind. Before we address the elephant in the room that I know you feel very strongly about, they do have a few injuries. Cannon Peebles behind the plate is dealing with a little bit of an injury. There's a few other guys. They had a first baseman who, let me see if I can get his name up here. Alberto Ozuna, that has since entered the fold a little bit from Tennessee. Talk to us about your opinion on Alberto Ozuna, Micah.
I'll start with this. I do not fault Tony Vitello. I do not fault Alberto Ozuna for what is happening. Because if I'm Tony Vitello, why would I not want to grab a kid that makes my team better? If I'm Alberto Ozuna, why would I not want to give one more grand scheme chance to push for a professional career? That said, if they approve this waiver for Alberto Ozuna, and this is also extends to Goldstein at Georgia, that is the most BS thing I've ever seen. Everyone keeps talking about the Diego Pavia stuff, and I understand that. But they have a whole year to react to that. And Jake, I don't want to go too much into our conversations, right?
Yes.
We had a conversation with some coaches that brought up this scenario to a point. And they talked about how they couldn't bring kids in because the SEC told them no.
Yeah, I saw a report from UNC that is very public, so I'll share it. That their coach Forbes,
Scott Forbes said that they were told that there was no way he was going to get approved.
That the only reason that he is not at North Carolina right this second is because they got told it wasn't worth it.
Correct. They were told there was no shot. And so that's why I have an issue with it, because I understand the Pavia thing happened. But again, there's a year for that reaction. And again, it wasn't like –
they had that in place. So that is interesting that I was reading about. The Pavia ruling was fall of 25, spring of 26.
Yeah.
And he's suing to be eligible immediately. He's going to win it. I don't think he's going to. They always win it. Anytime somebody sues the NCAA, they win it.
I think that this time around, though, there's enough just clause. Because the other thing is, he can play and make money. That's the thing. Like, he can go – he was at Tampa. Like, Diego Pavia was being told no more college ball. Alberto Ozuna could play college baseball. He just couldn't play it at the University of Tennessee. And I know he would make more money, right, at NIL at the University of Tennessee. I get that. But, like, that's not what's being – he's not being denied his career continuing.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's an interesting argument. Again, I for one, I want him to play selfishly. If we have a chance to have the best team out there, I think it'd be idiotic to turn people away. I see the coach's argument with it. I will say this: the NCAA is not out to get Tennessee baseball at all. I've seen a lot of that. Yeah. That it's Tennessee versus that is not it at all. It is the fact that every single actually not every single coach. We know personally 4 or 5 coaches that have said that at ABCA that they don't want this. It opens a horrible can of worms, and then the compliance stuff. Okay, that's all we're going to talk about. Ozuna, drop dead stuff. They get Gavin Keelan coming over from Louisville. They get Andrew Fisher from Ole Miss. Hunter Ainsley's back. Dalton Bargo's back. What should we expect from Gavin Keelan from coming over from Louisville? Obviously, he's a guy who hit 330 for him, hit 9 home runs. Is that kind of the numbers that you expect from at Tennessee next year?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, he's a tough loss for Louisville. I know they were sad to see him go. They kind of saw the writing on the wall, though, as the season kind of came down that he was going to be going somewhere else. But that said, he's someone that I think Tennessee fans obviously should be very excited about. He's someone that provides a good bat. He's sound defensively as well. And I think he's the type of guy that's going to benefit from how Tony Vitello coaches and kind of the approach that they're going to kind of give him. So I think when it comes to Tennessee, right, I don't have them going back to Omaha anymore. It's going to make a lot of Tennessee fans mad. But this team is definitely capable of that, right? This is a team that is still loaded and still a top 10 program. Like, not a program,
Yes.
sorry, team. Like, they're a top 10 program regardless of result this year, but like top 10 team.
But here's the question, because we've seen Mississippi State miss the tournament. We saw Ole Miss finish last in the SEC. We saw LSU struggle until mid-May and then figure it out and get bounced in a regional. Where do you rank this Tennessee team in talent coming into the season compared to those last few national championships? I think that they're above Mississippi State and below LSU. I think that they're going to have a very similar season to LSU last year.
Yeah, the way I looked at it was I thought it was LSU is the number one of the four you listed. Tennessee is the 2. Mississippi State was the 3, and Ole Miss was the 4. I didn't think Ole Miss's team was that good after the
Mississippi State had a really bad luck season, I should say. So it kind of isn't their fault a little bit. But
right. Like pure talent, what you're looking at, like I don't think I expected Ole Miss to be as bad as they were last year or 2 years ago, excuse me. But I knew there was going to be a serious regression. So,
you got to have a lot of things go right to win a national championship. Tony V spoke on that in some other podcasts that we've heard. But I mean, the one that I was thinking of is I went back and watched that game against Florida State, game 2, when Florida State has runners at the corners, no outs, a chopper, they throw the guy out at the plate. It kind of in an in-betweener of if he's going or not. Next pitch, shot to first base. Burke turns a double play and gets him out of the inning. At that point, it was 2-0. If Florida State even gets 1 run or they get a double down the line that they're able to score 2, that game completely flips. So a lot of things have to go right for this Tennessee team to win a national championship. I think that it's a similar thing. I don't think they have as much talent as last year. A lot of things have to go right for them to make it to Omaha. And they've had an unreal run the last 3 years. I think that this is where it ends. But predictions for this weekend, clean sweep of Hofstra.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say is last year Virginia opened with Hofstra to start the year, and Hofstra led in 2 of the 3 games after the 3rd inning. So they're scrappy. They are a scrappy team. But yes, Tennessee will sweep.
Moving on to another team that I'm sure we will predict will sweep, LSU versus Purdue Fort Wayne. They also announced their pitching rotations. Cade Anderson in the Friday night role, Anthony Ianson, the transfer, in the Saturday role, and then Chase Shores in the Sunday role. I know going into the season, a lot of people had Chase Shores as the Friday night guy, Cade Anderson as the Saturday, Ianson is kind of a flex. Anderson's just had an unreal fall and an unreal spring. Jay Johnson had a very interesting quote today that he said he would trust Cade Anderson with his life. So that kind of tells you the stuff that he's done. Anthony Ianson is, in my opinion, you said Zach Root's one of the best transfers coming over. I think Anthony Ianson was one of the best gets out of the portal. And then Chase Shores, a big, tall righty that could run it up to 99. So they have 3 Friday night guys that can go all week. Micah, did I freeze? You're frozen on my screen.
No, I'm not frozen.
Oh, you're just sitting back.
I'm moving. I'm listening to you.
Projected lineups. Obviously, this stuff is kind of subject to change because Jay's already mentioned that they're going to be swapping a few guys in and out. Luis Hernandez catching, Jared Jones at first, Daniel Dickinson at second, Stephen Milam at short, Michael Braswell at third, Derek Curriell in left, Chris Stanfield in center, Jake Brown and Josh Pearson as the right field and DH respectively. Let's start with a little bit of the shocker, if you will, that everybody knew was coming. Stephen Milam's moving from second to short. Braswell's moving from short to third. Daniel Dickinson moving into that second base role. I think that's because Braswell, I don't think, has the range that Milam does. Coupled with Milam not having as strong of an arm to play third base, and Dickinson being a natural second baseman. I know a lot of LSU fans were surprised. I thought that was going to be the plan all along. I saw an outrageous stat too that Michael Braswell is hitting .08 in the fall. That's ridiculous. I had that confirmed by a few LSU people that no, he's had 2 hits in multiple times. He's had multi-hit games, even, if you will. How do we feel about this LSU team? I'm going to get very, very real for a second. They remind me a ton of Vanderbilt last year. It's Jared Jones and then not a lot else from power. Hot take.
I really like the pitching staff, and I think that's why I'm so high on them. I actually just switched them into my Omaha 8 graphic. Maybe do I need to take them out, Jake? Because I was kind of getting I've been falling in love with this pitching rotation and just the kind of what they have in the bullpen too. I also just am a huge fan of Jay Johnson and what he brings to the table, obviously too. But I mean, you're not entirely wrong. Like the lineup is underwhelming, might be a good way to put it. Like it's not.
I wouldn't say underwhelming. I would say that it's a lot of guys that are gonna hit around 300.
The names are underwhelming. Maybe is that the better way to put it?
I mean, like Dickinson was a really good get out of the portal. Braswell has a ton of SEC experience as a doubles guy.
I guess it's just not the names that we've seen in the past. Maybe that's
why
it's
not Cruz, it's not Tommy White,
right.
But they're going to hit more doubles than home runs, which again, like we talked about with Vanderbilt, doesn't get you to Omaha. Like it helps you win in Omaha if that's how your offense is built. But teams that I think it was like of the 8 teams, 7 of them were in the top 10 in home runs. Mm-hmm. That's not this LSU team. Like I don't really know who's going to hit fourth for them. Like, Jared, it's either going to be Jared Jones in the 3-hole or 4-hole. Outside of that, they don't really have a guy that really kind of strikes fear into you. Again, they have a bunch of guys that'll get on base. They'll do hit and runs. They'll do bunts. They'll be that kind of team. How far is that going to get LSU? Because, again, they're going to have – them and Arkansas, I think, have an argument for the 1-2 and the best pitching staff. I don't want you to think that I think LSU is going to be bad. I just think that everybody has them as a Sharpie into Omaha. And based on past teams that are very similar to them, I struggle to put them in.
No, yeah, I mean, this weekend's probably not going to tell us a lot, but it's definitely something I'll be watching for sure. But
let me pull up LSU's schedule because I know that they go to Frisco in a few weeks, and again, that's not the best barometer, as that those teams aren't really that good. They have Fort Wayne, Southern, Nichols on a Wednesday, the University of Omaha, our proud founders' alma mater. They have Dallas Baptist on Wednesday at Globe Life. Then they go into a Kansas State team that got worse, a Nebraska team that got worse, and a Sam Houston team that got worse, before finishing it up with North Dakota State and North Alabama before SEC play. Is it outrageous to say, and they have Missouri to open up the SEC, that they're going to be undefeated going into Texas, and we won't know how good they are?
Undefeated is kind of a stretch, right? This is baseball we're talking about, but like
A&M was able to do it last year.
No, you're right.
Yes,
but a ridiculously even if it's I don't know how many games that was. We'll say 17-1 or something.
Yes.
That is very plausible for sure. And
yes.
we're dealing with unbearable LSU fans telling us, "Oh, this is the greatest team in college baseball, and how they're even better than the CWS team from 2 years ago," and all this stuff. And we're gonna be sitting there like, chill.
Yes, it gets a lot more daunting as they have Texas and Mississippi State back-to-back weeks. What's the one that they drop? Obviously,
Purdue, Fort Wayne. No, I'm just kidding.
Do you think? Yeah, they get swept. That's your prediction?
Yes, they're gonna actually start 1-17.
They have Xavier.
Xavier's a scrappy team, so I guess if I have to pick one, that's probably
it's a midweek too.
Yeah,
but they have depth. That's the thing about these midweeks with these pitchings. I feel like midweeks sneak up on you when you're too reliant on the long ball.
Yeah.
So that's what I kind of think. But we'll move on into a Florida team. We have them at number 11th. D1 has them a little bit higher. I have them as right up there in that upper echelon tier with all the other great teams in the SEC. They are one that I believe that they released the pitching rotation. Let me pull that up here. It is Liam Peterson, Jake Clemente, and then Pierce Coppola in that Sunday role. 3 guys that, I'm going to be honest, all feel the exact same way. They're 3 guys with high ERAs that are a lot better than their ERAs present. High strikeout guys. Walk bug kind of got them a little bit. When Florida was at their peak going through the tournament, that was where they were. Lineup standpoint, as we are almost to an hour, and I really do want to keep this under an hour and a half, so we'll go a little bit faster here. Kyle Jones, Kobe Shelton, Blake Sear from Miami, Cade Curlin, Luke Heyman, Brody Donay, Bobby Bowser, the freshman, and then Brendan Larson at first base. Where do you feel about this Florida team? Obviously, I think that they're going to sweep this weekend. How do you feel about them going forward?
I think Florida has a high ceiling, low floor. I really do. Like, I think this is a team that could legitimately go back to Omaha, contend for a national title. But I also could see a world where this just doesn't work kind of like they hoped. I don't know. Maybe saying low floor is low floor because I don't think missing tournament low floor. But like
they got to be really bad to miss the tournament as they showed last year.
Correct. So like I don't think missing the tournament is going to happen. But like again, Florida's realistically they are the like Omaha or bust program.
Yes.
There's obviously other ones, but like they're just consistently an Omaha machine. Like I've been to Omaha the last 4 years, and they've been there 3 of the 4, I think, or 2 of the 4. At least 2 of the 4, I know for sure. It might be more than that, but
yeah. Obviously, it's going to be this pitching rotation. It's going to be Liam. It's going to be Clemente and Coppola. If they pitch at a 5 ERA, they don't have Jack Caglione to bail them out to hit. What was it, 17 straight games with a home run or something like that?
I think losing Brandon Neely, I mean, I think the bullpen's still good, but that was just such a workhorse, man.
He would eat innings. That
I
was
mean,
the other thing.
Watching him literally have his arm fall off at the Clemson Super Regional was one of the craziest. Like, I mean, that guy literally threw everything he had. He knew that, like, his
He
arm
did it in Omaha, too. Remember
Yeah,
we saw they played a doubleheader, and they were like,
Yeah.
yep, got to rest the arm and everything. He was out there running. So we'll move on. Sweep this weekend. Georgia playing in a tournament up at UNCW. That is in a.
By the way, kudos to Georgia for going to UNCW for a tournament. I love when teams do that. Shout out to them.
Well, that is not entirely by their own doing, as
That's
they
true.
are
Their
still.
field's not done, but.
Yes, their field is still under construction, and they are awaiting it.
But they could have like done a neutral or gone to like a power school or something. At least they went to a good program that's going to challenge them.
Yes,
and also rewarding a program like UNCW that deserves. Who, by the way, hosts ACC top 25 teams all the time in midweek. So it's like they're not used to hosting good teams. It's just good on them. That's
we've documented Georgia. We had that preview show.
That was a great show, by the way, with Olivia. I watched that.
I really appreciate that.
Listened to that today on my way home from work. That was a really good show.
I've already said my piece with Georgia. I'll give you a chance. Do you think?
I think Georgia. I had Georgia on my way too early. Omaha 8. I've since removed them, replaced them. I've put LSU in there, but I think Georgia is very like if the transfers hit, like I think you said it well. I think Olivia also beat that home, right? Like Georgia grabbed a Moneyball kind of scenario. Like they grabbed a bunch of pieces that are going to kind of like replicate what Condon brought to the lineup. They found bits and pieces of his game that they could replicate in individual players. And I think this team is deeper than last year's team. And I think that's something to be really, really excited about. And I think, too, and this is not a shot at Georgia baseball fans, right? But they haven't had a ton of reasons to be this excited in a long time. And again, that's one of the better fan bases in college athletics, right? When they're into things, they are into things. When I was there for the regional, obviously covering Georgia Tech, like that wasn't obviously that's a rivalry to begin with, but that was a intimidating environment. And obviously the NC State people I talked to during the Super said kind of the same thing. So I'm really excited. Obviously the investment with what they've done at Foley Field is also exciting. There's reasons to believe that this team is going to be special in 25.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Wes Johnson has the money and the resources to recruit people that he wants. Asked who Georgia's biggest baseball rival is. In football, it's Florida, it's Tennessee, and she said they've owned us the last 5 years, so it's kind of Georgia Tech. So I think that Georgia fans are chomping at the bit to be good again, and I think it starts with being the hunted for the first time in a long time at Georgia baseball. Yes, they've hosted before, but it's really never felt like they've had this much hype. UNCW is a good team. I think Georgia raises a lot of eyebrows when they dominate this weekend.
I think UNCW. So how does this tournament work? I don't have the schedule in front of me. Do they play UNCW twice?
I think they play
Quinnipiac twice.
I think everybody's playing each other twice, but I'll pull it up here.
If they're playing UNCW twice, they're dropping one. If they play them once, I can get on the sweep bandwagon with you.
It's 4. They play UNC. They play Quinnipiac Friday and Saturday, and then they play Wilmington Saturday at 4, and then Sunday. They have also released their pitching rotation. Just as I pull it up here, they have a really, really odd one too, as well, as they're going with an opener. Sorry, let me just scroll through. Everybody released their lineups. It's going to give me a second. It's Leighton Finley in like a reliever role. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Owen McDaniel, who he's a great follow for Red and Black if you need stuff for Georgia. Colton Smith, game 1. Charlie Goldstein, not the Florida Atlantic transfer, the returning letterman.
That would be Eli.
Yes, Eli and Charlie. Eli is an Ozuna type guy. Charlie is a guy with an injury that is working his way back. He will pitch game 2 for 1 inning before Leighton Finley will replace him. Brian Zeldin will take the mound for game 3, and then Zach Brown will start it for game 4. Wes Johnson on Goldstein's usage. You just got to continue to build him up. So you'll see him open for somebody next week, and it's not like him and Finley are paired. It's just when we need to open him that day based on the timeline and things that I've got written down. So don't think of it as a shot at Leighton Finley or anything like that. It's a very good staff. I've argued that they don't have a Friday night guy. They have 2 Saturday guys. So we'll move on from Georgia. I think that they go 1-1 with UNCW and then Quinnipiac. But again, that's gonna raise a lot of eyebrows if they go 4-0. It's hard to go 4-0. Another team that I think sweeps, Mississippi State. We'll be very brief on Mississippi State just because they have a ton of guys that can kind of slide in and out. I have their lineup that I projected in front of me too as well. Ross Highfill, who had under 200 for Mississippi State last year, but was a highly regarded recruit. He's one of my picks to kind of break out. Hunter Hines is back another year. He's kind of the Danny Burgers of the SEC in a good way. Sawyer Reeves at second. Dylan Cupp, another highly rated recruit that's coming off injuries. Ace Reese from Houston. And then in the outfield, I said Nolan Stevens, Bryson Chance, Michael O'Brien. State fans roasted me into oblivion that Bryson Chance is going to be in left. Michael O'Brien will be in center, and Stevens will be in right, and then Nolan Sullivan DHing. They also, I believe, had their pitching rotation come out too as well. It is going to be, and they play a doubleheader on Friday and a game Sunday as well. Just kind of some updates on that. I swear I saw them post it. Anyway, here we go. It is Pico Khan Friday, Carson Ligon on Saturday, and then Stowe Simon holds off for that Sunday role. There were a few kind of transfers, a few freshmen that were kind of in the mix for that, but Stone is the incumbent. He pitched really great in the fall. Manhattan leaves something to be desired, but we saw
good tune-up weekend.
But we saw what happened in those midweeks last year that played a huge, huge part in everybody's perception of Mississippi State. And Chris Lemonis talked about it, is that, people like to say that midweeks don't matter, but that's probably why people thought that Mississippi State sucked for so long last year, is they dropped some of those midweeks early. So Chris Lemonis has the guys chomping at the bit to get ready. Flex weekend. That's going to be my new term that I'm going to use on SEC weekend. When you flex over your opponent, I think they dominate. I think they get a lot of guys in that can get some meaningful at-bats, but double digits with a run rule, if a run rule will be in effect. That's my prediction.
I'm on board with that.
Yep. Okay. We'll move on to our final ranked team, Kentucky, going on the road to Lipscomb. Kentucky is replacing a ton of guys off of that team last year. They brought in a ton of transfers too as well. That lineup we have is Devin Burks, who is going to be back there at catching, but Rafe Pelletier, I think, is going to get some meaningful catching in there. What they do with Burks when Rafe kind of catches will be interesting. Dylan Koontz, which I do want to give a public apology to Dylan. I did misspell his name, so I do apologize for that. Luke Lawrence is a super, super underrated transfer coming over from Illinois State. Him and Tyler Bell, I think, are one of the 2 best double play duos in the SEC. Tyler Bell is obviously the highest recruit that's ever made it to Kentucky's campus. Patrick Carrera at third base. He's been there forever. Ethan Small, Will Marcy, Cole Haig, and James McCoy in the outfield and DHs, respectively. Kentucky's going on the road. I saw them on Upset Alert on a few other sites. How do you feel about Kentucky this weekend? Everybody seems to have an opinion about Kentucky, whether it be good or bad. What's yours?
Well, so here's my thing so I have Kentucky as my last SEC team to make the tournament. They are so hit or miss, right? Like some people are high on them, some people aren't. I didn't rank them. But I'm also having a hard time believing that this is going to be replicated on a consistent basis at Kentucky. I really like the program. I still to this day, the most wowed I've ever been in a facility was when I went to Kentucky Proud Park for the first time against Mississippi State, actually 2 years ago, when Kentucky really wasn't that good. Just how the atmosphere was, considering the weather, and just how beautiful it was, the investment they put behind that program. But I said this on our ACC show, because we have like programs like Notre Dame going to North Florida and Boston College going to USC Upstate. Like, as someone that works at a mid-major school, there is value and there's so much energy and investment from like promotion standpoint, from student turnout, when a power team comes to your campus. Lipscomb has they're 2 years removed from the ASUN champions that, if I remember correctly, either did beat Clemson or almost beat Clemson or almost beat Tennessee. Like they made some noise in the NCAA tournament, like at least from a competitive standpoint. I think there's a lot of reasons to believe that Kentucky is not on upset alert from losing the weekend, but I do think they're going to drop one because, again, I've said it before, I think there is value to these teams, and Lipscomb is a good enough team to beat Kentucky. Again, a team that's got, you said, so many new guys that it's going to take time for them to kind of get their groove. So Lipscomb's going to get one, but Kentucky is the better team. They're going to win the series. I don't think they're on like sky is falling, loses the weekend to Lipscomb kind of watch. But
I will say this. I am probably Kentucky's number one baseball hater. I'll wear that on the chest that I was wrong. I really wanted to not like Kentucky on paper because they are replacing so much. But I love Dylan Kuntz. I think he's a very underrated transfer. He's a guy that needed a fresh start. Luke Lawrence is, I think, the most underrated transfer. I think he's better than Daniel Dickinson down at LSU. And they were two guys that, probably had the pick of the litter where they're going. Tyler Bell is a guy that I'm super, super high on. So there's a lot of pieces in place for it to be a really, really good Kentucky team. It's the first time in Kentucky baseball history that they have a standard to live up to. How they react to that and stuff like that when they are kind of put on a little bit of a pedestal and given a little bit of a benefit of doubt with Nick Mangione. I think that they go in and sweep, but I think it's going to be 3 very, very competitive games. And it wouldn't surprise me to see them drop a series. And I'd go as far as to say, of all the SEC teams that we have ranked, they're the one most likely to lose a series simply because Lipscomb's probably the best opponent. Again, I don't think it's a knock on Kentucky at all.
No, I'm gonna
coming down the backstretch, we have 3 SEC teams that are receiving votes on top of Ole Miss and Missouri being out of it. Oklahoma opens with Lehigh. Let me see. I don't believe they have announced their starters at all. But it's going to be the Witherspoon twins, and then Cam Johnson, I think, is the prediction there. I was doing their kind of lineup bracket preview just so I had a good understanding of it. I'll go ahead and read that off here as it kind of pulls up. They have a weird dynamic with Easton Carmichael where he can catch, but they really like Scott Mulder, who caught a ton of games for him last year. So balancing that, obviously they're going to have a lot of guys kind of slide in and out. Scott Mudler is back behind the plate. Easton Carmichael at first. Kyle Branch, who is the younger brother of Colby Branch, he is expected to win that second base job. Jackson Wiltz, his brother is a pretty insane recruit too as well, so he's projected to go 1-1 in a few. Dawson Willis coming over from LSU Ennis, 6'6" guy with a really, really good glove. Then Brandon Kane, Dason Harris, and Jackson Walk, along with Dayton Taki, who can play first with Easton Carmichael catching or DHing. Outfield's really athletic. I think a lot of the SEC is going to be really surprised with the brand of baseball that OU plays. I'm really excited to kind of see them obviously they're gonna go in and kick the doors off of Lehigh. I think that's a pretty safe assumption, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think Oklahoma will sweep. I'm still not completely all in on Oklahoma. I have them missing the tournament, but
I have them ranked for reference. So.
But again, they're a team that has a lot of question marks. Again, I was not very high on them last year. 2 years ago, I was the guy sitting right behind their dugout saying that they didn't deserve to make the NCAA tournament, that Kansas State deserved it more. So I am a known Oklahoma baseball hater, and I'm sorry, Sooners fans. Like, I don't know why that is the case. Like, I have no reason to actually hate you guys. I just don't want to believe in you for whatever reason. But at the same time, it is Lehigh. They're not.
Yeah, they're not going to be that good.
Again, if you're Oklahoma, right, you are going to try to set the tone, establish, some confidence. So yeah, they're going to.
Yeah, they do have a new stadium that they're unveiling as they kind of did some tasteful upgrades to it, with more coming in the coming years. Easton Carmichael's probably the best player on this team. He's one of the best players, I think, in the SEC. OU handles this pretty easily. I went back and pulled these from the College Baseball Central Top 25. The fact that we had South Carolina receiving votes is like asinine. No one else had them in receiving votes. A lot of people had them 15th or 16th in the SEC. I kind of have them in like a fringe 12 to 14 range. They get Sacred Heart, who's not really the best team. It's going to be Paul Maneri's opening weekend with South Carolina. It's a very mixed bag with him. I think he's going to do really, really great things. I don't know how long he'll be there. This doesn't feel like a Paul Maneri team. It feels like it's a transition year for South Carolina. Is that kind of what you see as well?
Oh, yeah. I still think they're going to make the tournament, though. I just think that there's still enough talent there. I'm a huge Kennedy Jones guy. I think he's a nice guy to have in the lineup. But overall, I mean, this is a sweep weekend for sure. But it's also not going to be – this is not going to be the best of years for South Carolina. But that's okay because, again, like you said, if you just go with the expectation this is a transitional year, as you should, then I don't think it's going to be a bad transitional year, especially considering what the SEC is this year.
Yep, they still have a guy who has an argument to be one of the best hitters in the SEC in Ethan Petrie. Where he plays is a little bit of a question mark. He's going to be in the lineup. You just don't know if it's going to be first, right? DHing. Kennedy Jones, Talmadge LaCroix moving behind the plate. I think that's going to be a really, really good transition if he can figure that one out. If you remember correctly, he is a natural catcher who played third behind Cole Messina. Cole Messina's moved on. Opens the door for Talmadge LaCroix. Starting a freshman in KJ Scobie at third base. AJ seems to be really, really high on him. I think that they'll be in kind of that fringe territory where they'll drop some games you don't expect them to, but they'll also steal some games at home. Founders is still a really tough place, I think, to go in and play. Mm-hmm. This is a sweep weekend for South Carolina.
Yeah.
Auburn, they are kicking it off against Holy Cross, another one with a sweep weekend. Ike Irish, Cooper McMurray, Cade Ballou. Auburn has a really underrated staff, as they did announce who their starters are going to be. It's going to be two guys with SEC experience. As I get that pulled up, give me a second here. It is Cade Fisher on Friday night, Sam Dutton on Saturday, and then the freshman Chatterton. I don't have his first name off the top of my head. I do apologize. But underrated staff, like all things considered, for where Auburn was last year, where they are going this year. I think people are kind of sleeping on them. Monty had them ranked, I think, in the top 15. How do you feel about this Auburn team? Obviously, Holy Cross.
I don't say top 15, but this is an NCAA tournament Auburn team.
Yes, I feel that as well.
So I think this will be – I had them 10th in the SEC in my power rankings going into the year. This is going to be a good team. It's going to be a much improved team from last year.
Much improved.
But I'm also not like saying regional host either.
They're a weird team. They remind me, ironically, a lot of Auburn football, where they're never considered in that elite status with the S tiers, but they go to Omaha pretty frequently. We've seen teams with this talent end up in Omaha. I don't think it's expected, nor should they have the expectation to go. But crazier things have happened with Auburn. This isn't a bad Auburn team. I'd say it's one of the better teams that Butch Thompson's had. It's just the SEC is such a meat grinder. Sweep. Are you going with the sweep weekend here?
Mm-hmm.
Lastly, Alabama is playing host to Bradley. They are another one where they have announced their pitching rotation. They are rolling with Zane Adams, the Texas boy from right down the road from me, Riley Quick, and Bobby Alcock. It'll be really interesting to see how Alabama does because everybody is super low on them. I really like their coaching staff. I think that Rob Vaughn's a really underrated coach. But there is kind of a talent discrepancy. It feels like they're the island of misfit toys, if you will.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm getting bookmarked on my SEC power rankings, and I know for a fact that a majority of them are Alabama fans.
I will say this.
I have them as the third worst team. It's Ole Miss and Missouri, and then the next was Alabama. So they were 14 out of 16.
That'll probably get them in the tournament. I know that's weird to say in the SEC.
I don't think there's 14 yet. I think it's a max of 12 from the SEC. Like I just don't think because there's a lot of good teams in the Big 12. There's a lot of good teams. The Big 10's better than it's been. Like these records are going to have to matter at some point. I know Florida got in with the record they had last year, but that was it's going to be different because again, 16 SEC teams.
Yeah.
But anyways, I mean, Bradley, not anything to worry about. Alabama should sweep. If they don't, honestly, it'll make my preseason power rankings a little bit easier to justify to Alabama fans. But
we can go ahead and clip this, Alabama fans. I think you know how the Red Sox had that cowboy up thing where they were like, "We don't give a crap." The island of misfit toys in a good way. That's what I kind of see this Alabama team being. Micah, as we kind of approach, we'll give some closing statements. You and I are going to be in Arlington. We're going to be breaking down every single game. With that, we have some big plans for the weekend that we have yet to be revealed. Really appreciate everybody tuning in with us. Micah, any closing remarks?
No, excited to be in Arlington, get a look at Ole Miss and Texas in person. Obviously, we got to see Texas a couple weeks ago in their alumni game, but seeing them play somebody else that isn't,
yes,
playing them in an actual serious moment, not a glorified inter squad, but going to be excited. I'm excited to see too the crowd that they get in Arlington. I know obviously it's not going to fill Globe Life, but I hope Texas fans bring the same energy they did in Austin. So excited to kind of get there. And again, it's funny, the SEC weekends aren't as good as the ACC ones, it seems, but there's still some games to watch for sure.
Of course, yeah. I'm really excited to see Kim Canarella. I know that he's an ACC guy, so Monty will have to get a little bit mad. I haven't yet to see him in person, but he's an incredible athlete.
We have two of the four best outfielders in the country head in the first game of college baseball, Jake.
Max Ballew's 6. I don't know if he'll actually be there.
No, that's what I was referring to. Two of the best four. Cam Canarella and Nolan Schubert.
I guess that is true. Yeah, I forgot about Schubert. Really appreciate everybody for tuning in. We're going to be doing this every week. Monday noon is when we'll be doing our breakdown of it. I don't know if Mike will be there, but my SEC house will be there every single time.